You know, St. Patty's Day used to be easy for politicians. Wear a little green, march in a parade, even have a little swig of beer. Not anymore. A collision between parade organizers and gay rights has mayors sitting out this year's festivities. Tonight, we talk fallout. The president and Obamacare have fellow Democrats nervous this election cycle. We're going to sit down with Congresswoman Nita Lowey to see how much dissension there really is in the ranks. And Charlie Rangel says he wants to make this his last term, and he thinks he's earned the right to not be primary. Al Sharpton says the Harlem institution better not hold his breath. This war of words and Dominic's one-on-one with Reverend Flake coming up. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this Monday evening, March 17th, and a happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Now, this is St. Patty's Day, when millions of Irish Americans and those with a little bit of Irish in them celebrate their heritage, most famously with, of course, the parades. Not surprisingly, the two biggest parades are in the two cities with the biggest Irish American populations. But in both places, the wearing of the green meant ethnic pride colored with a political side. It's a time-honored American tradition, marching and toasting to Irish heritage. But this year, the country's two biggest St. Patrick's Day celebrations are caught up in a clash over gay rights. Parades in Boston and New York City losing major sponsors because organizers ban openly gay groups.
This will be the 23rd year in New York City, and it's not over until every Irish LGBT person can march down the street behind a banner that says who they are.
Critics call it a double standard, saying no other groups are told to march unidentified. Brewing companies like Guinness, Heineken, and Sam Adams all agreed, pulling their financial support for the parades. For the first time in decades, New York City's mayor sat out in protest. Boston's mayor also stayed home. But Catholic groups denied discrimination against gays. They simply cannot march under their own banner, said Catholic League President Bill Donahue. The parade has one cause: honoring St. Patrick.
People can march in the parade with their groups, but without any political signs, and I think that's appropriate.
Donahue called on Catholics to boycott the beer makers, but some worried that the move could backfire.
That would not happen in Ireland, and I think that they would find it to be really shocking and embarrassing.
Still, for more than 1 million New York City parade goers, the controversy put little damper on the fun. All right, let's bring in our panel on this. Jeannie Zain, a professor of political science at Iona College, a professor of campaign management at NYU, and an author of a piece we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show on spouses as well as their kids and whether they should be off limits when it comes to the press. Now, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, but so much more. And Richard Brodsky, former New York State Assemblyman who used to berate the media, but now he is a member of the Fourth Estate here, senior fellow at Demos, professor at NYU, and we know so much more. Okay. Did de Blasio and Bratton get it right? Dominic, I'll start with you. De Blasio sits it out. Bratton marches, part of obviously the NYPD commissioners we know here. This is this new navigation, elected officials who used to march in the thing. They got to figure out where they fall.
Well, that's trying to split the baby in the middle, if you will. The mayor feeling that he can't be there for political reasons. But with a brand new term, and maybe I'm a bit naive here, I don't understand for a mayor who's so strong with supporting the gay community, why can't you march for your first year and stand with the Irish American community? Because right now they're greatly offended, and with the thought they believe that the breakfast that's held every year, they thought that it might have been canceled this year. It was put together at the last minute. Misstep on that part, but the mayor's sticking to his guns.
Also, he said he wouldn't march in a parade in the Far Rockaways because he said there was exclusion when actually there wasn't. Small things, but people now aren't giving the new mayor the benefit of the doubt. On this one, do you think he did it right?
When he gets it wrong, that's a problem. He has a political point of view. The organizers of the parade have a political point of view. They're both entitled to their political points of view. It is the people who are getting either upset by what he did or cheered by what he did, I think missed the point. There's a movement in this country. Things are changing. The Irish community, that part of it that organizes the parade, has to rethink its position. It's not just the mayor, it's now the two big beer guys. who have pulled out of sponsorship of the parade. I think change is always difficult. It doesn't mean anybody's right or anybody's wrong, but the wind of change has come. The mayor is going to align himself with that wind of change.
And you know, for me, Jeannie, one of the things that was even more than the politicians sitting this thing out, Guinness, Heineken, Sam Adams, or it's been, they pulled themselves up. But the idea that Guinness wouldn't be part of the St. Patty's Day parade, when they probably would have had political cover for doing it, but still chose to sit it out, I think this is indicative even more so than politicians.
Yeah, I think it's really telling. When the money walks away, you know that it's a sign that the world is changing. I mean, we're in a changed environment, that people aren't going to, just shut up and put up with this kind of, hold that the Irish community that organizes this has on the, in terms of letting, not letting the gay community participate in the way they want to. Now, so I think it is indicative, and I think that probably we're not going to see the mayor during his term ever march in this parade until they make these changes, and I think we're probably going to see changes to the parade sooner than we may have thought. I mean, it is hard. I mean, Richard's right. These kind of changes are hard to make, but if you look around the country as gay marriage sweeps the country, we saw the president change his position on gay marriage. We've seen gays in the military change. I mean, these things are changing fast. So
yeah, we all have a sense it's when, not if anymore.
Yeah.
But Rob Astorino, the Westchester County executive, who is probably the de facto Republican nominee who will go up against Governor Cuomo, he did march in the parade, and we caught up with him with our cameras. Take a listen to his rationale why he marched when the mayor didn't.
This is a private parade, run by a religious organization. So, look, I have a huge respect for our gay and lesbian residents. I've had a wonderful relationship. I've spoken at their events. But we do have to respect for everybody, and tolerance goes both ways, too.
Does he have a point? And I've heard others say, listen, this was a group that says nobody gets to go under a separate banner in this parade here. Can you have it both ways, or if this is the policy, that it is exclusionary to gays and there really is no middle ground?
Well, that's what I was trying to say with my first answer, that you can, maybe the mayor, and obviously he does feel differently, but, his first year in office.
It's not just this mayor. The mayor up in Boston also
a
said the
middle
same thing,
ground,
yeah.
Dominic, would end up infuriating both sides.
Fair enough.
This is not just a private event. It's the fire department, the police department march in uniform as symbols of the city.
Yep.
They use public space. There's a cost to the public of this. That's not a bad thing. But when, ask yourself this question. If there was a group that wanted to celebrate something, and as a consequence it would not allow Catholics in the parade, or Jews, or African Americans.
Yep. Totally different conversation. Yep.
And maybe the answer is there ought not to be a totally different conversation.
I think you did it right. This is one quick question, and maybe it's a sign that times have changed or not, but it was reported today, you mentioned it off the top, and this, I guess, is identity politics, that Irish groups, because of both the breakfast today, I mentioned that Rockaway event before, the parade to a lesser degree, but to a degree nonetheless, they feel that they are power brokers in city politics, and that they've been excluded throughout this process by this new mayor. Are they from a bygone era, or do they really wield as much power as they think they do?
I have no idea how much power they wield. But if indeed they were not part of a consultative discussion, that's wrong. The mayor can and should do what he thinks is right, but he should talk to people about it. If he didn't do that, that's a mistake. Let's not keep that mistake equal to the mistake of marching in a parade that doesn't stand for the stuff you don't stand for.
But Richard, let me just make this point. Every year, mayors of New York City, it doesn't matter your political stripes, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, for every major holiday, these breakfasts are held. Some of them are held, for example, Bloomberg would hold some at his townhouse or at Gracie Mansion. Most mayors hold them at Gracie Mansion, and they're a big to-do if you're in that select leadership.
By the way, I've been to a couple. I always feel for the guys who've got those cable sweaters because it's like 100 degrees in that room. I'm like,
Yes.
somebody ain't gonna make it out of this thing alive, you know. But you've been to
It is.
with
It
the
is.
awful green beer, right?
And so, you know, but it's very, very important to community leaders. They want to feel that this is their opportunity to be before the mayor. It's their day, you know, and it's not talked about that much publicly, the breakfasts. What I'm trying to say is that I was about to say the Bloomberg administration, the de Blasio administration screwed this one up, not the mayor, his people. They didn't reach out in time. People thought that maybe he was canceling
Last
it.
thing I know, we'll talk about this. There's been a lot of folks who even like this mayor who feel that he's got a communication problem, and that some of the folks he surrounded himself with, that there's too many, Indians, not enough chiefs here, and that somebody needs to control message more. You think that's a fair point here?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's had communication problems right along.
Which
I mean,
are
we saw
diverting
that
from
with
his main message where he's trying to get
I mean,
across
we
the
saw that
important
with
stuff.
the invitation to the press to come to a press conference and ask questions. He talked for an hour and then fled the room. And, you know, there is a school of thought that says the loss of his main PR woman who obviously had the relationship with Spitzer and wasn't given the job has been a huge hole. And I think, I mean, we talked about this before, those staffing problems can be really difficult to overcome. He has a communication problem, and certainly if he didn't talk, whether it's in terms of the breakfast or in terms of the parade, if he didn't communicate what he was doing and why and give a reason and make people at least understand what he's doing, that's going to be a big problem for him going forward, because it shows a lack of respect to an important segment of the community.
You've lived this life. I mean, we looking on the outside, but you did.
Marched in many a parade.
But it's also the getting, even if people don't like it, you got to play the game here. And to be able to get the message across.
The key phrase here is if. We're rushing to a set of discussions about
No, I'm
whether
not
he has a
talking
problem.
about just the parade. I'm talking about the first few months here.
I am. That's the point. If you'd let me make the point.
Boy, Richard, you still arguing he doesn't have a communication problem? Are you still?
I'm still
making
saying
that
I
point?
don't know whether or not. I think he's made mistakes, but I'm not sure they're communication problems.
Okay.
I don't think he handled the way he approached a couple of things in Albany the right way. It's not that everything's perfect. It's that people who don't get the right decision often complain about the process as much as the outcome. He'll figure the process out. The big point for this guy is after 2 months, he's had a major victory. That is, there'll be pre-K across the city.
We'll talk about that.
And he's, wait a minute, and he's trying to find a way to act like the mayor in a very difficult time with a governor who's hostile to him and to a community that's used to Mike Bloomberg. Everybody relax, he'll do fine.
See, for me, the point is, on the important stuff, he hasn't fallen short yet necessarily. It's the little stuff, I think, that's harming him if he's got an ambitious agenda, which he seems to. Now, Mayor de Blasio, he wishes his biggest headache was the St. Paddy's Day parade here, which I think we all agree probably made the right decision on. Instead, he's got to deal with difficult union contracts, tough editorials now from the Times, and questions about whether he's ready for prime time from a messaging standpoint. We're going to talk about not only that, but also the war of words I mentioned between Congressman Charlie Rangel and Reverend Al Sharpton, and Dominic tells us what's really going on behind the scenes. We'll talk about that and more after the break.